And now on the line is Hans Zomer. Hans is the CEO of Global Action Plan Ireland, or GAP Ireland. Hans, welcome back to Near FM.
Thank you, Darren. Great to be on the show.
Okay, Hans, I know that occasionally you be a guest on other programs on Near FM, but this is, I believe, the first time in just over a year where you are a guest on this program, the Global Solidarity Program presented by Tony Fitzsimons. What inspired me to get in touch with you again today, Hans, for this interview was seeing how well the introduction of the bottle return scheme in Ireland is going since it was introduced a few months ago. And I know that the issue of plastic pollution is a serious issue, maybe in some countries more than others. Hans, can you start off by telling me of what you and GAP think of the issue of plastic pollution in general, and then tell me how happy you are with the introduction of the bottle return scheme in Ireland?
Yeah, thanks so much. And you're absolutely right to raise this issue. Plastic pollution is an enormous issue, and that we don't really think about it too much in our everyday lives, I suppose. But there's the news in the recent months showed that even the ice in the North Pole region is already polluted by plastic. And plastic has been found in mother's milk. So plastic is now entering our bodies and our all living things on the planet. We are producing a ridiculous amount of plastic. And one thing that people don't realize, I think, is that worldwide only 9% of the plastic that we produce is being recycled. And that means that each year, totally each year we make about 460 million tons of plastic, and 14 million tons of that comes into the ocean every year. And that means that to put that in perspective, that's about the weight of 4,000 elephants every single day. So scientists are saying that in the near future we'll have more plastic by weight in the ocean than fish. So this is the situation that we're dealing with. We are polluting our own planet at a ridiculous industrial scale. So something has to change. And in that sense, you mentioned the deposit return scheme that has been introduced in Ireland. It's a really important step for us to try and stop polluting our planet so much with plastic.
Yeah, what you're saying there about plastic being in the water, that's like small bits of plastic. They're called microplastics, aren't they?
Yes, exactly. The plastic, as you know, plastic doesn't really biodegrade. All that it happens is that it breaks down in smaller pieces. So you got small pieces of plastic, microscopically small pieces of plastic in the water and in our food sources, etc. And some of that microscopic plastic we've actually put in ourselves. For a while it was very popular to get these health or shower products with microbeads. That's essentially producers putting small pieces of plastic in things like shampoo or shower gel, etc., etc. And all that plastic is being washed straight down our sewer and into the ocean. It's a crazy situation. So if your listeners are going to do anything after this interview, please stop buying products with microbeads in it.
Yeah, I read an article a year or two ago, Hans, that said that even in Ireland, most of the recycle, when we put our stuff in the recycling bins, most of it is not actually recycled, even in Ireland. Is there any point, Hans, in us taking the issue of filling our recycling bins properly seriously when most of the stuff is not actually recycled?
Well, it is extremely important that we do recycle, but it's not the solution in and of itself. So you may know that what groups like Global Action Plan often say is we need to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And recycle is very much the last option because plastic can be recycled once or twice, but not infinitely. Like if you have things like aluminium, you can recycle that forever. But plastic can be recycled once or twice, and even then it has to be thrown out. So the recycling isn't a solution, because all it does is that it postpones that we throw it into the landfill or somewhere else. So what we really need to do is try and reduce our use of plastic and reuse the plastic that we have as much as we can. So, and this is actually the topic of currently 170 countries are negotiating together to try and get a United Nations level treaty on stopping plastic pollution. And it really is about banning single-use plastic, because so much of the plastic that we use is single-use. It's not just the party plates and plastic cutlery that we use sometimes at events. It's a lot of it is packaging. I go to the supermarket, I buy some tomatoes, they're wrapped in plastic. The first thing I do is throw the plastic out. So we should try and stop doing that. It's really what we need to do is do two things. We need more regulation, so reducing the production of plastic, but also we as citizens, we have to show that we can actually live in a way that uses less plastic and that gets rid of this throwaway culture that we have built really only since the 1970s, that we buy stuff and throw it out, plastic toys, plastic, lots of stuff, essentially for balloons, those sort of things. We really need to stop polluting our planet with that.
Okay, you mentioned there's going to be a treaty. I think it's in November. I'll ask you about that in a couple of minutes. But just ask you as well. I don't know what the machines are called, Hans, but I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube in the last couple of years of some kind of boat machines which collect rubbish or plastic from the sea or rivers. I don't believe they're in Ireland now, but these seem to me to be excellent machines. Do you know anything about these, Hans?
Yeah, there are different projects worldwide where they're using those machines to get plastic out of our rivers and out of our oceans. Obviously incredibly important, but the much easier thing to do, much more cost effective, is to stop getting it into the water in the first place. And so we have to look at how do these bottles end up in our waterways, and that's comes back to habits that we have. We walk into a shop and we buy a bottle of water in a bottle, and then throw the bottle out. If you don't put it in the bin for recycling, and if you just litter the country with it, ultimately that's going to be washed down into the rivers, etc. So those machines are really important, but they're very expensive to operate, and it is much easier to make sure that we don't throw plastic around the place, and that we start thinking about the way we use plastic. So when I say we buy a bottle of water in the shop, why not bring your own metal bottle and fill it up to towns and villages around Ireland have water refilling stations now, so you don't have to go thirsty, and it's just handy to bring your own bottle with you. It's little things like that move us away from that throwaway culture that I mentioned. So, don't use single-use water bottles. Don't buy your vegetables wrapped in plastic. Look at other ways in which we can reduce our use of plastic. And if we do have plastic, like shopping bags or so, keep them in the car so that when you go to the shop, you never have to go, oh, I forgot the bag, because it's just there in the car or in the pocket of your coat. That sort of thing. So let's be a bit more aware of how we're using plastic, because it's a valuable resource, and plastic obviously is incredibly useful, but we should make sure that we use it wisely.
Okay, I have read also on social media over the last couple of years, Hans, of research that is ongoing for some kind of bacteria to hopefully at some stage eat plastic to end the problem of microplastic pollution. This also sounds like an unbelievably excellent thing to me, although I don't know if the practice has been finally introduced at a large scale yet. Do you know anything about this, Hans?
Yeah, I read the same stuff, but it's the same as goes for those bacteria as it goes for those machines you mentioned. Ultimately, those are technical fixes for a problem that we've created through our habits and our behavior. So we cannot go and say, well, we can continue to pollute the planet and then just hope that some machine or some microbe can fix the problems that we created. We have to acknowledge that the problem is ourselves, that is our behavior that is causing plastic pollution. So therefore we need to look at regulation and we need to look at behavior change as a way to start addressing this incredible problem, really, that we are drowning in plastic, and it's because we're being lazy ultimately. And so it's about trying to, acknowledge that we're part of the problem and try to change the way we behave, rather than put our faith in technical solutions or friendly microbes.
Okay. Okay, Franz, Hans, I won't keep you much longer. I know you've already mentioned this. It's very pertinent that we are talking about plastic pollution today because there's going to be a new international treaty agreed in a couple of months on the issue of plastic pollution on a global level. Can you tell our listeners more about this, Hans?
Yeah, this is really encouraging. I hope your optimism is right that the treaty will be signed by the end of the year. That's certainly the plan. So at the moment, 170 countries are talking to each other on how we can end plastic pollution. So what they're doing is they're looking at regulation and legislation to change, the impact of plastic on our environment. A lot of countries have already taken action, for instance, on banning single-use plastic like plastic plates and party cutlery, etc. But there's other ideas as well. One is that you could put a tax on the raw materials needed for plastic production. But really, the key sticking point in the negotiations at the moment is: should you just put a bar on how much plastic we actually produce? So it's not like the debate in the negotiations about should you start at the side of the use of the plastic or the production of the plastic. And to put it really simplified, poorer countries in the world generally say, well, you rich countries, you tend to produce the plastic, so bring down the amount of plastic you produce on an annual basis, and then we can talk. Whereas the richest countries saying, no, it's the way we use the plastic that we need to change. So I presume I would say they're both right. There are many examples of countries taking action to try and reduce plastic pollution. And like you mentioned, the bottle deposit return scheme in Ireland, for instance, that is working really, really well, with millions of bottles being recycled rather than thrown away. So we now hopefully can agree to extend measures like that to the whole world, and that would be the benefit of such a global treaty.